So now to another person who's influenced my life in some way, but who I've known for a much, much longer period. Back during my days at McKinsey, I worked with one partner who was always kind of thinking out of the box. And suffice to say that as I walked the halls of McKinsey, I didn't really fit in there. The nice thing about our next speaker is neither did he. So we were kind of kindred spirits in the halls of McKinsey. Dr. Khosro Ezaz-Nikpay and I worked together on a pro bono study advising the CEO of an innovative NGO focused on ensuring access for young people to music education. And that education that you get as a young person in the music space has been proven to lead to better outcomes in career and in life for young people everywhere. And it was something I really related to because I studied music growing up. And so that study finished, and I left McKinsey, and eventually Khosro left McKinsey, and we kept in touch occasionally. And then about a year ago, he asked me if I would come visit his little laboratory. So Khosro is a scientist. He has a PhD in chemistry from Harvard. So when he said he was inviting me to a laboratory, it wasn't some kind of like trendy laboratory. It was a real laboratory. So I went to, walked out. The lab is in Notting Hill, and it's under the Westway, which some of you will know is that highway that runs through West London. And underneath the Westway, there was this little laboratory, all silver, with like people walking around in like lab coats, and they were doing all of this work around scientific research around nutrition. And they did a little taste test for me, which we're going to replicate for all of you after the session today. But suffice to say, it just blew my mind. So I asked Khosro if he'd come and talk to us about nutrition today. So please welcome Khosro Ezaz-Nikpay to talk about the myths and the realities of nutrition.
Good afternoon. Before coming here, I asked my daughter. I said, "What should I do? How should I?" Imran asked me to talk about myself, and I always feel a bit uncomfortable talking about myself. It feels too self-celebratory somehow, and I thought I'll just sort of draw it in some pictures. And when I first, I hope this works. I first drew it going down. Because somehow that made more sense. And my daughter said, "That just means your life is going downhill." So I said, "Okay." And the second thing she said to me was that I notice these bubbles are sort of representing you as kind of in 15-year increments, which I learned today. If I'm basically every time I'm a sort of a 15-year-old when I switch track, that makes me a pivoter. So probably the oldest one around. But my life has sort of happened in a little bit in 15-year increments. I'm Iranian from my background, although I'm half German, which I try to suppress. And that sort of has really imbued me with a lot of pleasure of complexity and simplicity. So everything I do has sort of is somewhere in that tension. The second piece has been very much my science education, which makes me just love facts, trying to sort of really look at the world in terms of what's real and what's not real. The next 15 years was at McKinsey, which sort of imbued me with a love for solving problems. I love things that are problems and somehow getting my teeth into it and working at it until maybe there is a solution. And the last set of bubbles, which I'm sort of in the middle of that 15-year period, has been being entrepreneurial. So one of the companies is called Enjoin, which is effectively a consultancy on innovation, where we try to really look at innovation and find the tools that really help crack certain aspects of innovation. So one thing that maybe some other day we can talk about, we have figured out a way of really understanding what the consumer deep in their hearts, deep in their souls, actually in an emergent way is asking for. So things that are about to happen on the trend side rather than looking past at what is already existent in the world. Zendegi is a company which Imran just talked about, which effectively tries to take all the problematic areas in food and nutrition and find a solution for it. So later on, you'll taste healthy ice creams. Ice cream is, in a sense, a lovely product because it tastes great, but it's full of fat and sugar, which is effectively a pump to just add a lot more fat into our bodies. So we said, can we re-engineer it just with fruit and vegetable? The whole fruit, the whole vegetable. Is it possible? Everybody told us it's not, and 2 years later, we have something fun. So hopefully you like it. And then there's a whole bunch of other ideas that are emerging. And so that ice cream idea, we sort of have turned into a company. We're actually, hopefully, next month or in 2 months, we'll launch it also on NASDAQ. So we're very, very excited about letting these little babies evolve. But I'm here to talk a little bit more about what are sort of stepping back, really at sort of 10,000 level height and looking down on health and human health. What is it that you really should care about? Because the world is full of a lot of information that's confusing to you. And most people don't have the time to actually go scrutinize it. And a lot of the information that you get is incremental. It sort of says, oh, eat more, I don't know, chew more wood because your cancer rate will go down by 3%. And you don't quite know what to do with that. Should you chew wood now or not? How do you look at this whole thing? And if you step back, there's some very simple solutions. Each one of the ones I tell you about, if it was a drug, it would be a multi-billion-dollar drug because it has huge impact on your health and on your well-being. And I hope, actually, it links also to some of the other discussions we had earlier. Strauss's speech, I think, is very much set me up, actually, for success now. So if you all remember, fat used to be bad. Do you all remember that? Fat was bad. It's still not good, don't get me wrong. But people found a solution for it. They said, well, let's substitute something for fat. The problem is that there's really only certain set of things you can eat in bulk. So the wood that I referred to earlier, you can't eat. Chalk, you can't eat. So the only things you can eat is fat, is sugar or carbohydrates, is protein, and is fiber. And water, I guess. That's it. There's nothing else you can eat in bulk. So if I have a high-fat yogurt, and this is the amount of yogurt you want to eat, and I want to take a fat out, and I want to give you the same amount of yogurt, I have to put something back in. Okay, what did people put back in? Sugar. So that was the next step that people took, because there is not that much of an optionality that you have. Now, sugar is bad. Some people are going back to fat, and others are going forward towards protein. And here's the issue. We are, all of us, maybe not Strauss, but more or less the rest of us. We're eating fat today. We're overeating. We're overdosing on fat by something 20 to 50%. We're overdosing on sugar by something like 200 to 300%. We're overdosing on protein, and this is not people who are going to the gym and working it out of their system. And if you're doing high-end sports, you do need protein to actually rebuild damage to your muscles. But for most of us, we're overeating protein already by something like 50 to 70%. So if you want to substitute things, I would argue substituting between these is a no-go because you're already overdosing on it. And in general, all of them are healthy, by the way, just in the right amounts. So when you overdose, you start effectively creating problems for your body because your body starts using it in different ways or tries to get rid of it or deposits it somewhere in your system. The one topic that we are not eating enough of is fiber. And we're not eating enough of it to the tune of about 50%. So we're getting only half the fiber that we should be eating. Now, all the other ones are linked to all kinds of diseases. Fiber is the opposite. It is linked to the opposite diseases. So it's healthy for your heart. It prevents a number of cancers. So again, if fiber was a drug, you would be selling it like you wouldn't believe. You can get it for free. Fiber is pretty much in fruit, vegetable, in the normal things that you can actually consume. You just have to try to consume more of it. And the question then for us became, how can we make it more attractive for people to want to engage with fiber? Because fiber is not sweet. It's kind of a neutral taste. But one hopefully one learning is that really the only thing at the macro level that you need to really look at is not eat more of this or more of that. It's just shifting the balance a little bit, more in favor of fiber and less in favor of the other ones. That's it. And you've already done, from a nutrition perspective, probably 90% of what you need to do. So everything else is marginal. We have not yet found anything that truly delivers the type of health benefits that fiber does. And why is that? Because many of you may or may not know, you've got about 2 kilograms, sort of an organ, in your guts of these bacteria that live there. There's actually more bacterial cells that you carry around than cells in your entire body. So there's this weird 2-kilogram organ here that gets fed only by that. And it has all kinds of effects on your well-being, on your hormonal balance, on your health, on your weight, all of those things. And if you take a look at what I said earlier, what you really want to look at is what's the benefit that we actually need to measure? Is it the fact that we have 3% less cancer, but because of having that amazing thing that gives us 3% less cancer, we got 10% more heart attack? That hasn't really been a good solution. So you need to look at how much longer do people live in a healthy way. That's the only measure that matters. And unfortunately, in the nutrition space, there isn't that much data on that one parameter. So we've spent a lot of time trying to collect all the information there is and getting sort of second guesses with respect to what actually can deliver that. But we know certain nations, Japan as an example, Japanese, despite the fact that mostly men in Japan smoke far more cigarettes than, let's say, people in the US, despite that, the numbers are that the Japanese live 5 years longer, healthier. Okay? That's a huge number. 5 years where you can enjoy life more than, let's say, their friends in America. On the other hand, if you look at the cost to keep people healthy, the US is 2.6 times higher cost per capita to actually help people keep healthy. So these are huge numbers. Obesity costs in the UK is 1% of GDP. These are not small numbers that we're dealing with. And I would argue the one and only solution, and you've heard it here maybe the first time, that's going to be the trend because it's the only real thing, is fiber. And there's no other solution, well, short of gastric band surgery and taking drugs. But on the normal way, if you do not want to go into drastic things, that's, I think, the only solution. Now, what prevents us from actually engaging in health? On the one hand, you've got the snake oils. Everybody tries to sell you something on a promise of the panacea. Take 2 droplets of this mushroom thing and somehow you become happier and healthier. On the other hand, we have various images dumped on us in terms of how we should look. Those are, by the way, Ken and Barbie doll in real life. These are people who actually want to look at Ken and Barbie. Or we are always told that something is lacking with us. We're either too fat or we're toxic, therefore you need to do a detox. Just think about it. Detox means you're toxic. And I would argue in the history of the world, we're probably in the least toxic time of humanity. So there's a lot of things where you just need to really watch out what images are implanted in our heads for a certain kind of behavior, which actually does not really lead to anything. You just spend a lot of money and you do not get anything out for it. So how do we tackle this? And there's really 3 things that I believe can work, and they need to work together. One is fiber, so that's the F in there. One is what Strauss talked about, that's the M, which is movement. You don't need much movement. I was very happy with what Strauss said. You start small. That little bit has a huge impact. Again, if you just walk for 20 minutes a day, more than you are doing right now, you're reducing your cardiovascular incidence by 30%. There is no drug that you can buy that can do that. So it is not that much movement. Now, if you do more and more, even better for you. But even 20 minutes additional walking per day has huge effect. But the most important part is that E in the middle, which is enjoyment. if you cannot do any of these things with enjoyment, you will lose. So take diets. Diets in general are not enjoyable. Why? Because you're either calorie restricting yourself, you're all angry, or you eat only a certain kind of thing, which makes you smell funny, all kinds of things. So diets, and if you look at the statistics on diets, roughly speaking, there's about 5, maximum 7% of diets work in such a way that it reduces your weight by appreciable amount for over 6 months. And if you go to 12 months, it starts dropping off. And of those, only half of that, so around, let's say, 2 to 3%, takes off more than 10% of your weight. So in other words, if I was 100 kilograms and I should be at 70, it gets me down to 90. I'm still overweight. And that only in 3% of the cases of diets, and that less than a year. So if you just look at those numbers, it says diets don't work, full stop. Just don't work. And the reason is that that middle piece is missing. It's very hard to keep to a certain thing. It's very hard to be hungry. And so you need to find ways to marry movement with fiber, with enjoyment. So the product you're trying out outside is just one way. You don't need to buy this product at all to be healthy. You can go and eat some fruit and vegetables, and it has exactly the same effect. All we've tried to do is get the fruit and vegetable freeze it as early off the field, and have the fruit and vegetable as ripe as possible, so you get a lot of vitamins and get the maximum nutrition you can get from a fruit and vegetable. And then we turn it into a fun product, again, to deliver that fun piece of it. Because if you tell a child, I don't know how many of you have children, if you tell a child, would you like to have this piece of vegetable, or would you like to have this ice cream? I can tell you which they will pick. But if you can turn that fruit and vegetable into an ice cream, they love it. So, and it doesn't have to be that sweet. So fruit is quite sweet, and fresh fruit, which is full of flavor, gives you an additional benefit. So, it has about half the sugar because of the fruit in it than a normal ice cream. It has none of the fat, and it has 10 times the fiber. So you get all the benefits in a fun way. The second thing I think that's important is to get consumers to play with it. We've created the product in a way that people can actually make smoothie bowls out of it, and drop it in some juice and blend it and make it a smoothie out of it. They can bake cakes out of it. And we let the consumers come up with ideas and engage them around how to make this product more fun for them. So the fun is very important. The other thing that we do, which everybody tells us not to do, is we try to give people the facts. Everybody says, on our package, we have actually that thing. And everybody tells us, nobody understands this. And our point is, it doesn't have to be that anybody sort of really engages with it. But those who want to, at least they get the facts, and they can engage further with it if they're interested. And then finally, the most critical thing is to work on the cost. To have something that's affordable. It's very easy to create a very luxury end, but you would like to try to sort of get it to a place where more and more consumers can afford. And there we have a huge disadvantage compared to sugar and fat, because sugar and fat is about 1/3 of the cost of a fruit and a vegetable. So you have to come up with all kinds of sneaky, smart ideas of being able to sort of compensate for the higher cost by being faster in your production, by coming up ways of managing the supply chain in a different way to still be able to make a profit. So just in summary, if you think about your own health, think about not overdosing. Another example, by the way, is vitamins. The evidence is in. If you overdose on vitamins, it's actually unhealthy for you. So be careful. In most of us who live in the Western world, we're getting enough vitamins. So unless you have a condition, your doctor tells you to take iron or take certain vitamins, be careful. You're overdosing yourself. So don't overdose. And the only way on the macronutrients not to overdose is try to sneak in, have a bit more vegetables. And by the way, the fiber also fills you up. So one of the things we've started doing with the ice cream, just for fun, we've started telling those of our customers who do worry about their weight, we say to them, look, have half an hour before every meal a little bit of this ice cream, or if you don't have access to ice cream, have some fruit and vegetable. And half an hour, why? Because it gives enough time for your stomach to signal to your brain that something has arrived. So there's this hormone ghrelin that sort of signals it to your brain. It takes time. So half an hour beforehand, and then go eat whatever you like. Don't stop yourself. You want that greasy burger, go for it. The thing is that people will not eat as much. They can actually completely self-regulate. And as Strauss said, it won't happen that their weight drops like this, but their weight starts very slowly going to where it should be at a sort of at a healthy level. So that's it, really. Combine. There isn't that much more. I wished I could come here and say, guess what? I can sell you this amazing thing. There isn't. But what's important is that the effect of the things I'm telling you about is huge. We're talking 30, 50% reduction of heart attacks, dramatic reduction of blood pressure, elimination of certain cancers from your body. So these are not small things in terms of just the health. But you need to combine it with the fun part of it and the movement, which is on its own right as important. Thank you very much. And
so as I mentioned earlier, we're going to do a frill tasting after this session, where you will not only get to taste the plant-based fiber ice cream. Is it ice cream? What do you call it? Fiber ice cream?
we're not allowed to call it ice cream. There's
Okay.
no cream in it.
The fiber thing. But also Khosro is going to be available for any questions you have, for tips and tricks on getting that right nutritional balance, because I'm sure some people have some questions. So thank you, Khosro.
Thanks.
All right.
Okay. Bye.